Good evening. The hour being after 6:45, I'd like to call the January 26, 2023 School Committee to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'd like to add a moment of silence. We'd like to recognize Patty Tarbell, who passed away on January 11th. Patty was a graduate of Walpole High School and began working for the Walpole Public Schools in 1989, retiring in 2005. Condolences are conveyed to her family from the Walpole School Committee and administration. Moment of silence. Thank you. Our first order of business is the Walpole High School Student Report. And we've got Colin, and we'd like to welcome Victoria.
Good evening. My name is Colin Mahoney, and I am a junior at the high school.
I'm Victoria Busey, and I'm a freshman at the high school. I'm shadowing tonight.
So Monday marked the end of the first semester, with many classes having unit and term assessments in the last week. Report cards will be sent out next Tuesday, the 31st. Additionally, many students, specifically seniors, in foreign language classes are currently taking the biliteracy test after school to demonstrate their bilingual skills in Spanish, French, and Latin. Student section turnout has been strong amidst some of the most highly anticipated games of the winter sports season. The track and field teams are finishing up their regular season and have their final league meet tonight. The other winter teams continue to build on their success in the second half of their season, with girls basketball and boys hockey both notably in the top 3 of Division II. Next week, the winter sports teams are hosting an ALS Awareness Week to support For You I Will Fight. Clubs continue to keep busy and plan activities. The speech and debate team competed last weekend, and the UNICEF Club continues their clothing drive. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Colin and Victoria? Great. So Victoria, you think next time solo maybe?
Sure.
Not too scary.
No,
we're not too intimidating.
Not too bad.
Read's tough, but everybody else is okay.
Thank you. Well, we know you have a lot going on as high school students, so you're welcome to stay, but we understand if you have things to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next order of business is a STEM report.
Right, so the school committee is going to be provided with elementary grades K-5 STEM curriculum update, and to facilitate this, we have Mr. Tom Reeves, Director of Digital Learning, who's also present with, and I'll let Tom, you want to introduce the staff?
Sure.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here for the curriculum update to talk about our new Media STEM program. I'm going to try the on button. There we go. Okay, as you know, this is the first year of the program for our K-5 Media STEM program. It began this past, at the beginning of the school year this year, and we're about to start the second half of the year with it. It covers a variety of topics connecting coding, digital literacy, engineering design principles, library skills. And in that second bullet, my favorite word there is the connecting word, because not only does it cover these different areas, but the teachers do a fantastic job of putting them together in really great interdisciplinary activities and units. This is a program that reaches all students kindergarten through grade 5 once or twice a week. It's part of the specials rotation, the 4-day rotation with PE, art, music, and then this new Media STEM program. Kelsey Flanagan from Elm Street, Lindsay Morris from Old Post Road, Kristen Moses from Boyden, and Tim Preston from Fisher are here to tell you a little bit more about it, because I knew rather than listen to me, you would rather hear from them about the great things they're doing with their students in their classes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Tim Preston. I'm the STEM teacher at Fisher. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to kind of go over the coding aspect of our curriculum right now. So one of the major programs that we've been using so far this year is called Scratch Junior. Scratch Junior is a free introductory program that we use to introduce coding to the younger students and even the students as young as kindergarten. We use Scratch on the iPads, and it allows students to really create their own interactive stories and games. And the students really enjoy customizing their own characters and programming those characters to life on their screen. Up on the screen, I have a couple. We included some pictures. This first one is in the middle. It's a first grader programming his car to move across the screen. The second is just a second grade class learning how to change the size of their characters in Scratch Junior. The bottom left, a second grader programmed their dogs that they customized to race each other. And in the middle, it's a kindergarten student coding the story The Mitten by Jan Brett. So that's the connection to the literacy and also bringing in that coding aspect. Next slide is about Scratch. So Scratch Junior is typically used, it can be used with K to 5, but Scratch we typically use with the upper elementary students. It's a little more advanced coding program, but it uses what's called block-based coding. So again, it can help students to create their own projects, create their own stories. It's free and it's accessible to all students, including English language learners, because it's available in over 70 languages. So it's really it's really accessible to all students. And the skills that they're learning at the elementary level, they're going to be able to take over to the middle school in their computer classes. So I know in 6th grade, they use Scratch at the middle school. So the basic, us introducing Scratch to them at a young age really gets them ready to move on into middle school, to really jump off so that they don't have to learn all of the introductory things and they can just get going when they're in middle school. Some of these pictures, they're just students. This is a 3rd grade student editing their new character in their winter theme project. Again, Scratch is really all about customizing and making it their own. It comes with a lot of base pictures that students can edit however they want. On the far right, that's an example of all the block-based coding. A 5th grader actually used multiple lines of code to make their snowman jump on a trampoline. Really impressive stuff. I don't even know how to do it half the time. What they're doing is amazing, and you're really seeing what we're noticing from these students is they're really diving into the curriculum, what they're doing, and they're really finding a new place and discovering things that they never knew were possible. The last thing is the robotics that we've been using. Students at the elementary level have access to many different types of robots throughout the school year. The first one is, they're called B-Bots. They help to teach students directional code, and it's programming in like a sequential way. So it's pressing forward 3 times and then having them turn and then move. This is a great one example of a lesson is back to The Mitten by Jan Brett. On the B-Bot mat are just a bunch of pictures from the story, and the assignment for the kindergartners where they had to program their B-Bot to retell the story. So it's activating that knowledge of, well, they're retelling and sequential order, but it's also bringing in that coding aspect of programming their robot to the right spot. So they're hitting a bunch of different areas with just one assignment. The other robot that we have been using is called Dash. Dash is a really cool robot that helps to bring coding to life. There's 4 different apps for the robot. They're all age appropriate, depending on what grades there are. Dash can be used with K all the way to 5, but depending on which app you use is what's appropriate. They're all age appropriate apps. And Kelsey's actually going to be talking about one way that we use Dash to really access the curriculum. All right, so thank you very much for listening.
Hello, I am Kelsey Flanagan. I am the STEM teacher at Elm Street. I am going to talk about Dash, but first I would like to talk about the changes to the Elm space itself. We rearranged the books in the library to create more room for collaborative workspaces. So as you can see on the left, that was before, and on the right, there are whiteboard surface tables, flexible seating options for students, and then we also changed where the books were. So now there's a couch that students can read on or work in groups, and they love the couch, as you can imagine. What I'm going to talk about today is how we use Dash in the classroom. So this was a project for grades 3 through 5. It was over the span of 4 weeks, and the end goal was for students to create a Lego float and code that Lego float to travel down a road. So their first step of the project was to sketch out their designs. And then on the right, you can see students begin to build their designs. And then I did include some of the finished product. So it actually attaches to Dash's head, which is awesome. The next phase of that project is to measure the route. So we're getting in those math skills. They measure the route in centimeters, and while 2 group members are measuring, the other one is actually entering the measurements into a coding program that we use called Blockly. And they're sitting right there entering each line of code. So the bottom left, you can see those lines of code, the whole parade route. Of course, I didn't make it just one straight line. I incorporated lots of turns. Maybe next year I would maybe just start with a straight line. It was a lot of measuring, remeasuring, which is part of the engineering design process, which was the goal, but it was really challenging for especially students in grades 3. And then they had to test out their code to find any bugs that were located in their code. And the final day, we got to celebrate by having a Lego parade, which we had many visitors. Dr. Goff joined us, Mrs. Ruggiero joined us, Tom joined us, and students really loved it. I've never seen students so engaged during a 4-week period. And I think the most devastating part for them was telling them they had to take the Legos apart at the end of it. I feel like they thought they were like their own like pets. They were obsessed with them. So it was a really great way to use Dash and to incorporate all the elements of STEM. Thanks again for your time today.
Just gonna flip this. Oh, now I go up. Okay.
Hi, my name's Kristen Moses, and I'm the media STEM teacher at Boyden Elementary. I apologize, I'm more comfortable speaking with children than adults, so if I look at my notes, forgive me. But thank you for inviting us tonight. I'll be speaking as to the media experience. So as you can see by our first slide, Boyden also received our new furniture, which has been a huge hit. So it just arrived last week, and our space, our media center is a community space used by students, obviously myself, staff, teachers, and parents. And it's been a huge hit. So we've been able to utilize the new furniture to create flexible seating, collaborative spaces, which really has promoted collaboration and choice. So media time in the elementary school, our goals are choice, curiosity, and connection. All elementary students visit the media center every 4 days. We're on a day 1 through 4 cycle. That second week, they do book checkout. So they are checking out books every other cycle, which sometimes we see students 2 times a week, sometimes we see them 1, but we see them very frequently. So during media, we'll practice library skills. There may be a traditional read aloud. but there's opportunities also for book checkout. So students practice the power of choice. Our goal is to create lifelong readers and lifelong learners. So students decide what book is exciting to them, whether that's the latest Dog Man, which it usually is, or an informational book on horses, or checking out a book that a parent can read to them at night, maybe a chapter book. We provide recommendations, and we teach students the organization of the space so that they can actively participate in the selection process. New this year, I think we have a slide for that, is self-checkout, which has been extremely popular. Some schools have done K through 5, some of us a little less, what's the word? Well, anyway, some of us have just done 2 through 5 to start. But students are really excited by the self-checkout process. Something that's been great about it is that they're actively able to see their account. So that promotes responsibility. It's not necessarily us saying, don't forget, you have these books checked out, but they can actively see their account. Over 1,000 books are checked out in our elementary media centers. That they average that per month. In grades 2 through 5, we have an online catalog at the Elementary Media Center called Destiny Discover. So we use that, students use that actively to look at our online catalog and explore it to see what's interesting to them. Grades 2 through 5 are trained a little bit more specifically to use functions so they can log into it, they can actively see their accounts, and they really enjoy features like holds, so they can hold books. So if Dog Man, isn't available at the moment, they know they can get on a hold and hopefully be the next out of 25 to quickly get the book. And favorites is also popular. So we call that like favorites, and so that's kind of like their to be read pile. So those are some features that they really enjoy. Lastly, connection. So our students really feel a connection to our library collection. We are always looking for that collection to be reflective of their interests and identities. We're very grateful for our partnership with the Multicultural Book Initiative, which provides us with diverse book donations. And then lastly, our hope is always that our Media Center connects our students to information, to learning, and to each other. Now it's Lindsay's turn.
Press the down one, right?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Morris. I'm the STEM teacher at Old Post Road, and I'm going to kind of wrap everything up that everyone has said and really show how these things can connect to each other. Here's a little bit more of the slides. This is a picture of the Destiny Discover that Kristen was talking about, where they can log in and then they can see the different selections and they can find their books. I think this one's also still, that's just a couple more pictures from Kristen's as well of them working in the Boyden Library. So here are some pictures that showed some different activities we've done so far this year that we tried to do that connected STEM with media and with literacy, because we knew that in 40 minutes, even if it's sometimes twice a week, that's not much time to do book checkout with elementary students and also do STEM challenges. So we wanted to find ways that we could get it all done. We wanted to really get a bang for our buck with that one. So this first here is something we did I think it was 3 weeks into the school year. It was for Dot Day, which is on September 15th. We read the Peter Reynolds story, The Dot, and then we had the different grades do different activities. 3 through 5 built towers as their first engineering STEM challenge that they had only a certain amount of cards and they had a certain amount of dot stickers, and they were trying to build the tallest tower in their grade. They got very into that. The picture on the left is of them using this was the media iPads before we got our iPads. Now we're lucky enough that every student has an iPad in our STEM center that they can continuously use, but they were using an app called Quiver where the students drew their own dot and then they made it turn 3D, and they loved that. So that was a picture of that one. This is another story, and this one actually was a connection to Native American Heritage Month. So we read a story called When Turtle Grew Feathers, and then Similar to what we did with the Mitten with the BBots, some of the younger students sequenced the story using the BBot and put the story in order. And then some of the older students started using Scratch Junior to retell the story and sequence it that way, since they both involve sequencing. And it's such a great connection to literacy coding, because they make that connection that the word sequence means put things in order, and you need to do that with your code, and you need to do that with your stories. This activity was with a gingerbread story, that we read the gingerbread story, and then they needed to build and design gingerbread traps. So they loved that. They used and these are all tools that were purchased for the STEM Center this year too. The Magnetiles are a huge hit. They love using those. We have Legos that they were using, the planks they were using for these as well. They're very helpful for our many different engineering challenges that we do. And a lot of times we do these activities on book checkout days. So some students will be checking out books, and some will be doing these activities, so that now when they come, it's not only spending the whole time browsing and looking for books. They do a great job of finding what they want, getting them checked out, and getting to these activities. This activity was based off a story about a snowball rolling down a hill, and then this was something that these pictures are of some of the fourth graders at this school. They had to build a 20-inch hill and have a curve in it and make their ball get down the hill and into a cup, and had 40 minutes to do it. So it was amazing coming up, seeing the creations they come up with, and seeing how well they handled the challenge, especially when something would fall or someone would knock something over. It's really fun seeing the way that young children will handle these challenges. And then finally, Snowflake Bentley is a true story of the person who originally discovered that snowflakes have the hexagonal shape to them. So we read that story and learned about that, and then all around the STEM Center, which now actually looks different than that because my furniture got delivered yesterday. I just don't have updated pictures for you. They were building snowflakes using those hexagonal designs, and also then on our STEM iPads, they were using an app called Drawings. Sounds like I'm saying that wrong, but it's really spelled weird. And they were making snowflakes on that as well. So just pulling in some of those different aspects of technology and engineering is something we are constantly trying to do to really get them using everything imaginable in the 40 minutes that we do have with them. And that is about it from us. If there's any questions for us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the way, I think there were some people who were concerned about what does that mean for the media center. So I like that, there's still a media center, and that you're weaving the two things together. I think that's really great. Jen?
I had a few comments. Firstly, I think it's just amazing what you're doing. I mean, I used to just a few years ago go into the library and be checking out books, and it was just such a different experience. I love the fact that these students are working collaboratively from such a young age on such complicated tasks, and it just makes me think, like, I feel like we didn't do group work until much later, and these kids are just really learning from such a young age, and they're going to be so far advanced, not to mention the fact that they're figuring out coding and how to use computers and stuff, which clearly is very different than when we were little. So I just think we're like really putting them on the road to success with some of these things. And the furniture and stuff, awesome. I mean, what a change that furniture makes. It just really like makes me all excited for designing some of the new spaces that are coming here. It just like pops of color and stuff, just really engaging. So it looked awesome. So good job.
Thank you so much.
Other questions, comments? Nancy?
I would just say, we didn't know what to expect when we first started hearing about this, and for you to have accomplished this much in a few months is amazing. And I think it's really good for kids because not everybody has like a parent who's an architect or an engineer who might like suggest all these kinds of building things, but you just want it to be fun for them so that they're not afraid of technology or engineering or science or math. So it's awesome, and I think I just think it's great. Your energy is excellent too. That helps.
Other?
Just one quick, thanks, great presentation. I always say I love the idea of trial and error, right? Our students need to learn it's not gonna work right the first time, and you just really work on how to continuously, adapting and figuring it out, and you only have this certain amount of time, right? It's awesome with that trial and error. And just a quick point on the furniture. When I was in Elm after the furniture was delivered, and I think it might have been a first grade class that was in there, and like their feet are barely touching right on the sofa. But I went in, I was like, this is amazing, and one of the students said, come here, and I came over and she said, you know what the best part of this table is? And I said, what? You can write on it. I mean, just love the fact that, you can write on it and problem solve, and it's wonderful. It really is. I could see the excitement and engagement. That's great.
Thanks, Sean. Sean, do you have a comment?
I think Bill had
Oh.
a hand before, maybe. Nope. Okay.
Great job.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm a little sad that my youngest is in 6th grade and doesn't get to experience this anymore, but I'm so pleased that this is available to our students for many of the reasons that my colleagues on the committee had. It provides a great foundation for not just the technology stuff, but many skills that they're going to use from here on out. I did have a couple questions. I wondered about the setup of the different spaces and how uniform they were, or if each school kind of puts their own stamp on it.
Each school is set up a little differently. We all got the choice to look through different catalogs and figure out what the best space, what the best solution to the space was for each school individually. So they're all a little different.
Well, we did have some guidance from
Yes.
WB Mason.
Yes.
Sent a designer or designer plans. So we did have that professional advice, which was very helpful.
We do have the uniform aspect too, that we do all have a self-checkout station. We do all have book areas where we have all the bookcases. We do have areas where we have our tables for the collaboration for STEM. So they're the same in that ways, but they do have their own little touches on them for our individual styles.
So would that include like the robots and the different resources that are available? Or?
No, we all have the same resources. Currently, there are some like our DLCs who have some robots that we try out just to see if they're interested something that we'd be interested in getting to. But our resources are currently the same.
Right, and the goal was to be equitable across all 4 schools, so we really got the exact same, basically everything.
And Tom was very helpful in creating, we would collaborate on a list, and then each school would get the same number of Dash robots, the same number of B-bots, same number of Magnetiles, Legos. So, where it may vary, may have been materials that we already had, or, but we are currently working on list number 2 for Tom.
And that's an example. The DLC at Old Post Road had a robot that from before that I tried out to see, and then I brought it to them so that we could see if it's something we'd all be interested in. So that is something we're going to try to get as well, because it seems like a really great robot for the younger students and a step up from the V-Bot. So at that point, we kind of bring those to each other because we do want to keep it so that we all have the similar technology across the district.
By design, we really tried to set up the program so that it was a very consistent program. So it was a very consistent program between the 4 different schools. The 4 teachers work fantastically together. They're meeting all the time. They're really keeping a very tight and coordinated curriculum, even while we're building it sort of as we go along. But we did make an attempt to make sure that if we're getting some materials from one school, we're getting them from the other schools.
Cool. I was wondering about kind of the curriculum aspect. This stuff was all amazing. I wondered if you guys have an idea of what's coming down the pike in the next few months.
I know for most of us it's engineering. Yeah. So we're tackling sort of this will be the first time that we're going to be sort of explicitly teaching the design process. So we are working, I know at Boyden I'm working with our DLC to sort of collaborate on projects from K through 5 that would have them, obviously at different levels of information for that process. But yeah, engineering is coming down the road next. So that'll be really exciting.
But just 2 more, if I may, sorry. And I just wonder, I know you're very young in the program, but if you've had any reflections as of yet on, what, maybe at the start of next year, or different things that would help the program to run more efficiently, or resources to support it.
Well, we have created a list for Tom in terms of, I think he's like, stop asking me for things, but, and And I know it's hard not to be reflective. I think we're 96 days into it. We only know that because we're in elementary school and the 100th day of school is a big deal. We're constantly trying to get there. But, you know, I think things, for myself, you know, I've always kind of trying to be aware of book checkout and circulation because these other areas are very exciting to kids. So, so we are, you know, that's one thing that I'm always trying to think in my head, how can I still keep the reading and the literacy and the book checkout exciting to students, as exciting as robots. So that's one thing that I'm kind of always trying to be reflective on and see for that every other time when they're doing book checkout, how I can really engage students in that process still.
For me personally, I enjoy that we're all new to this position, and it's a brand new position because we're teaching the same things, but we do it a tiny bit different in ways. So then if something I feel like was really successful, I share with them, they might like the idea. Or if I feel like something went terribly, they'll be like, oh, I did it like this, and I can adjust too, which I think will be huge next year going through that. We all will have lessons that we felt went really well, and we'll be able to share our little spins on them too and try them out that way. So I think that's a huge part of it too, of helping us be reflective, is that we all are new and we have no choice but to be reflective in this position.
And throughout constant communication, whether it's like shooting a text to the group and being like, okay, I need help setting this up, like, what, do you have any advice? I feel like the constant communication works really well for us, especially to make sure that we are all following the same plan.
Yeah.
We met over the summer to sort of map out the curriculum as best we can, but I even think moving forward, now that we've sort of seen what it looks like, I'm sure there'll be a lot of changes for how do we want to roll it out. You know, was this the best first project? You know, or so on. So yeah, I think that it'll just be constant reflection and changes this year. So.
And just finally, before you can tell that you guys have a great working relationship. I mean, your rapport speaks for itself, and our students are so lucky to have that and that collaboration among you guys. So I was wondering about connecting students and families with this. I mean, technology is something maybe not all students have the same access to at home, but in general they have access to a device that can get them on the internet, they can access some of these things, and I'm wondering if there's been any moves to connect the two.
I think it's really great that a lot of the programs that we use are free. So students are going home and actually requesting parents to download an app that we've been using in school, which I think is great. I had a student today come in, she was like, I've been practicing on Scratch Junior at home. And I was kind of panicking. I'm like, are these kids gonna be able to, like, they're gonna start doing everything before I start teaching them? Like, I don't want you to learn those big blocks.
Which they do that,
Yes.
but then it's good. I'm like, show me how you did that. Because
Yeah.
like, I wasn't doing Scratch Junior when I was in elementary school, obviously.
And the amount of students who ask Santa for Dash, we've had a lot of those, and we're hearing great things from families.
We all do have a website too that the students have access to, and I know that they're all listed on our school websites as well in the student resource pages. So I'll have students that will go ahead and look at them and go, I know what we're doing today. And they'll go ahead and send the different links and things like that too. And I know we all have something like that as well. So they're able to be in there and show their families some of the things we're doing as well. And then we send newsletters home with like pictures and updates as well of what we're doing.
Yeah, we all have, I don't know if it's the same exact timeline, but we all do submit to our principal's newsletter home. So that's a pretty regular update for parents. And I know even though families, only parents attended the open house this year. Yeah, correct, I'm almost forgetting what it was like. Yeah, I think it was just, but it was interesting how many parents kind of popped in trying to get an idea of the new space and got to see some of the robots and just walking around and stuff. So so I'm hoping that even next year's open house, whether it will be with students or without, will sort of even be more open because we'll just have that whole year under our belts. So.
Yeah. Thank you. This is amazing.
It is.
It's so cool.
Sean, it's funny that I'm glad that you mentioned the technology program website is phenomenal. thank you, Tom. And it's so phenomenal now that I'm bugging him to mirror it after some other programs that are on the website. It's really engaging, it's bright, it's informative. And kudos to both Tom and Dr. Hahn in terms of the curriculum focus. I'm glad you mentioned curriculum, because there was a lot of work really trying to separate, in terms of DLC work and your work. And, that it took a lot to really take a look at where that would best meet our students' needs. And I appreciate, your investment over the summer, and then to Tom and Dr. Hahn for really spearheading it and continuing the work.
Great. Yeah, I echo everybody. It's really impressive, and what you've been able to accomplish in such a short time is great. That's awesome. Can't wait to hear next year. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
For your budget.
From the fun to the mundane. Sorry.
This is all funded
This
through
is how we-
capital, by the way.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
So that was, all joking aside, that was
Yes.
300,000 of capital, and then our commitment to go a little bit beyond that. So they're coming back for round 2 to complete a lot of the loose ends. So that's exciting to see what else they'll add.
But then it is something that you can walk into a room and see the result of what we pay for. So it is
100%.
pretty impressive.
Yep.
Great. So
All right, I guess I'm going to walk it through a little bit at a higher level, not obviously the detail we went through for our budget this year. Obviously, feel free to ask any questions, but I'm going to work off of that worksheet that we used. So we used a FY24 budget worksheet we're still using, where on the left side of the spreadsheet, we talked about the expenses, the things that we need to fund, what has changed this year that's unique to this year. And what's part of every other year, like collective bargaining increases and things of that sort. So I'm going to start with the personnel budget, talk about the increases in that category, which is about 85% of our budget. So things that were impactful this year were collective bargaining. Our collective bargaining went up by approximately $1,300,000, and that's all COLAs and increases for teachers moving along in their careers, and the year-over-year increases for that. So that was about $1.3 million. In addition, we have Medicaid funding that we receive reimbursements from the federal government for services provided by nurses and medical-related OT-PT services for our students. And a lot of that funding came through COVID relief, so the nurses were able to file for a lot of reimbursements. Now that COVID has subsided to a degree and we're not getting that reimbursement, we need to drop that reimbursement projection by $200,000. So when you take the $1.3 million plus the $200,000 decrease, we need to increase our budget by $1,500,000 for those two reasons. In addition to those two reasons, we have 2 special ed mandated staff that we're looking at funding. It's 1.5 FTE for 2 staff that really are needed to support our programs and our students with special needs. So when you add that in, that's another $115,000, which gives us an increase of $1,617,394, which is 3.6% increase for the personnel portion of our budget. Moving down to goods and services, we have some items that I'm going to identify that are above our baseline last year. So in our central services, we have an item for $66,000, which is a transportation increase, and that's our yellow bus contract that goes up every year by a set amount, and that relates to our daily transportation of our students riding on our buses, as well as athletic transportation, which is also supported mostly on the yellow buses. Next item was buildings. In our buildings category, where our utilities reside, we have $15,000 increase for electric. Fortunately, we're in a multi-year contract, but our distribution will go up, and some of our generation, our needs supply-wise, every year seems to be going up incrementally. So we put an increase of $15,000 in that line item. Technology related to just what we heard here as our presentation, our last presentation, is obviously very critical. I think Tom mentioned a $4.5 million worth of technology in our district related to one-to-one and network infrastructure, all these items that came in through COVID, but a lot of it was here already. So we're trying to be more responsible in our sustainability plan. So Tom has defined year over year what we need to replace these pieces of equipment as we move forward. This does not include the one-to-one that's separately funded by the capital funding, which we received $300,000 this year for year one of that plan. So in our budget for all items outside of one-to-one devices is $98,000 to begin that sustainability plan, and that's in the technology budget. Moving down to special education, we have an increase of approximately $283,000. This is the biggest line item within the goods and services. This increase is really, I could kind of put it into three buckets. The first bucket is what we call OSD, which is the Operational Services Division of the state government, which put in, and actually the private special ed schools put in for increases to offset labor costs that they said are harder for them to get staffing in their districts. They needed to, in their schools, and they needed to increase their funding. That request was granted at 14%. An average year is usually 2 to 3%. So that's a pretty substantial increase, and the net impact of that to our district in Walpole is $225,000. In addition to that, we are facing a reduction in circuit breaker, which is a reimbursement we get from students going out of district for our tuition line item there. And so that we're fortunate enough to have a tuition drop, but the unfortunate part is the circuit breaker reimbursement dropped by $343,000 with that, and that's the natural ebb and flow of tuitions and reimbursements through circuit breaker. So that was $343,000 decrease. And then there's additional net costs for added district placements of about $175,000. This is all mixed in with other items that are moving, so I wouldn't recommend you add it and come up with a total, but it is impacting in the most significant way our special ed budget. We have some other items that we are keeping a very close eye on that are not definitive, but we know that we have some potential tuition-related, student-related costs that may come up next year, totaling approximately $750,000. That was not built into this year's budget, but we are accounting for that with what I would call the special ed reserve within our budget. Over the past 3 years, we have been setting aside, with the school committee's support, monies that were remaining, whether that was from an offset to ARPA funding or just tuition decreases, anything that we were able to save money on. We put that money together over the past 2 to 3 years, and we were able to accumulate about $1,500,000 to offset things like I just mentioned, that $750,000 that's not in our budget. So and we anticipate some of that $750,000 will come into our budget and will need to be funded. The plan would be, if that happens, to use some of our reserve balance, which is designed for this, so that we do not have to approach the Finance Committee in the middle of a budget cycle to fund these types of things, and that was the intention of the reserve balance. So going back to our overall budget, that was an increase in goods and services of $494,000 approximately, and that's a 7.7% increase for that line item. So our net increase for the school budget is, from the school department and school committee's perspective, is $2,111,846. That gives us a total budget of $53,506,500, which is the number that will be voted on tonight. So that is the school committee's final number at this point. Town administrator increased his budget by $1,902,396. And his budget is sitting at $53,297,050. So that is creating a gap of $209,000 approximately. That is a need that we have not filled yet. The town administrator recently came up by about $250,000, about half of our deficit. And we are remaining with that other half right now, so that's about 209,000. There are a series of strategies we can use to close that gap, but as time passes, we're hopeful that possibly some state funding will increase or some offsets from the state government may come in, and that's the rationale for leaving our budget a little bit higher with that gap still there. Eventually, if need be, we will close that gap and make sure that we're balanced for the new fiscal year. And some of the things that may offset that are grant funding. There could be a staff reduction here and there, not overly substantial like we've had in past years where we really struggled. And attrition would be another possible area that we could go for savings. So I think we are, as compared to prior years, we're sitting pretty well, waiting to see how things mature. And I think that the school committee is going to vote that budget tonight. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Nancy.
Mike, can you just repeat the number that we're at this point with the changes that have happened?
To our budget?
Yeah, the 53 million.
53,506,500.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
I just wanted to say for the audience that we've had extensive discussions on this, which is why there's not so many questions tonight, because we've been going over this in our public hearings over the last month or so.
Right, and the public hearing from last week is available. If people want to watch the details. Nancy?
Yeah, and I would just add that this is the beginning of a process. We'll be at the Finance Committee. We'll be talking to the other boards as is necessary. The other thing I would add to this is we often talk about the additional money that we need for next year, but we sometimes forget to talk about the fact that the main thing we try to do is just keep the staff that we have here employed. That's the biggest piece of our budget. And we went through collective bargaining in the springtime, and we try very hard to keep our teacher salaries competitive, but it takes an awful lot of cooperation from the teachers union as well. And I think we did a good job of striking that balance. So I think that, people, we don't talk about it necessarily at budget time, but I think that we should, because our collective bargaining increase, or our cost of living increase, is 2.5% for next year. And that's, given the resources that we had available, we felt like that was the responsible thing to do. But I really think we should point that out to people and credit the union for some good cooperation, because you only hear about the negatives, and there are a lot of towns that are struggling to get the cooperation that we got from our union. So I think it's a good thing.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the tentative FY24 budget.
Second.
A motion by Bill, second by Mark. All those in favor? 600. Okay.
I'm up.
Yes, you're up.
All right, thanks.
Superintendent report.
Thanks. All right, well, we already covered the budget, so I can check that one off my list. Just a reminder tonight that that is still going on is the 8th grade curriculum night at Walpole High School. They had a special education information meeting at 6:30, and then at this time, they have staff providing an overview of the scheduling process and the curriculum and answering questions that families may have. Last night was the LPAC. It was LPAC night meeting that was facilitated by our Jill Kimball. Our L teachers were there, LE teachers were there, and Jasenia Castro was also in attendance. So we had a very successful Ed Camp on January 13th. As I mentioned at our last school committee meeting, the day was designed to really provide some staff training. And we had some inside presenters, obviously through our staff, and some outside presenters. I gave you a list of examples of some of the workshops and the descriptions. They were absolutely amazing. Again, thanks to Tom Reeve and Jasenia Burke, Joe Kimball, and Sarah Scales for putting this together. It is no small feat to do all of this work and make a successful day. So we're getting the feedback from that with the staff now that it's over. In strategic planning, due to the upcoming legislative breakfast on the 9th, we restructured the strategic plan. We sent a link to all strategic plan members to get their feedback on objectives and action steps. This will enable the chairs to review and prioritize our action steps. We asked to get that feedback by the 9th. In the meantime, the chairs will share the goal progress updates that correspond to the highlighted priorities from 2022 until February. This is going to be done in a screencast format, which is, if you're not familiar with the screencast, it's a slideshow with audio, and it'll be a nice touch to do that. So then we can send that out. And I'm also going to be meeting with the high school students to get their feedback as well. So just a reminder, this is our 5-year plan, 2019 to 2024. In terms of the Massachusetts Mental Health Consortium, Walpole was accepted to take part in the Trauma Response Practices Learning Cohort. If you remember, it was something that we applied for and we were waiting to hear. So this cohort will enable individuals to deepen their own understanding in trauma response practices in order to lay the groundwork for future implementation. Our representative from Walpole is Ms. Nikki Bodenrader. She's the Bird Middle School Adjustment Counselor, so she will be meeting regularly with experts on trauma with that cohort in school mental health. And we really thank her for attending these sessions and going the extra mile through the rest of the school year. Some upcoming events, we have Title I Night on January 30th. That's at Boyden Elementary School. The extended day program, just as a reminder, they're offering the February vacation camp for school break. Principals have sent that out. That will go out tomorrow for me too. And there's the link. The deadline for that is February 6th, so they can get the necessary staffing. I keep saying this, I know kindergarten registration. If you, that'll also go out again. Really, the earlier we get the registrations, the better. It really helps the district, not only from a budgeting standpoint, but also from a scheduling standpoint. So if you have any neighbors or know of anybody that is entering kindergarten, just remind them to register. Also a reminder is that we have our virtual backpack. That's a link that principals sent out on Friday, but there's some really nice events that are going on in our Walpole community, and everything is put in the backpack, because if not, we get inundated with all different clubs and activities. So that's all there for families to have an opportunity for children to get involved in a variety of events. Finally, there is an update on the engineering study at Walpole High School, and I'm going to give that to Mr. Frisha to give us the update.
Do we drum roll?
So good news, more good news keeps coming from Eversource, our new friends. So we had set aside or committed to $50,000 to do the engineering study up at the high school. And Eversource, I got confirmation yesterday, stepped up to the plate, and they are going to fund the entire study.
Wow.
So zero cost to Walpole for the analysis of the HVAC system outside of the renovated proposed part of the building. Everything else will be studied by Eversource and their consultants, which are our consultants, which is TAP A, and their consultant does engineering work. And then once that's complete, in about a month from now, additional incentives will be put in place depending on the equipment that we need and our reduction in CO2 production from our current HVAC system. So the worse it is, the better off we are. So, and it's pretty bad. That's my update. So keep hoping, right?
Good news.
Good news.
Yeah.
Great. Nancy.
Mike, can I just ask you, there was something about like the lawyers have to approve a contract. Are we talking about that as that happens after the study gets done, or is that completely separate where the lawyers have to approve a contract? I think it's for actually collecting solar. Does it have anything to do with what you're doing up at the high school?
No.
Two totally separate
Two
things?
separate projects, but I can
Okay.
give you an update on that as well. I talked to Jim and Patrick, town administrator, assistant town administrator. I conveyed your desire to move forward with
Yeah.
those projects, and sooner than later. They agreed and asked that I reach out to their attorney and connect them with Select Energy, who's the vendor we're talking about, and basically get the two lawyers together. There has been some recent progress from our law firm, KP, and Select Energy to settle these contracts. So there is hope that there can be an agreement reached, and then these projects can proceed, and we'll get those savings.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there questions for Dr. Goff or Mr. Frischel?
This is a statement. I'm excited for the screencasted slides. Should be exciting. Talking
Tom
about
Reeve
the
is helping
progress
us.
and- Yeah, that's awesome.
Especially as a dear future.
Excellent. And really good, impressive list from Ed Camp.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, next order of business, middle school building project.
Very good. Concrete's still being poured for the foundations. So anybody that has a student there, I think you're starting to see a building beginning to take shape. And the other big point is that the estimates that have come in under budget will soon be signed contracts. So those are the two big ones, concrete and contracts.
That's great. Questions or comments? Sean?
Just curious how favorable the estimates might be.
About 700,000 under. Yeah, so we're about 700,000.
Under.
Yeah, came in under by about 700,000, so.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, I feel
Amazing.
like those words should be said loud.
Right.
I do too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It represents a lot of work as an outsider to the work that the school building committee did. Some prudence, some, talking about some cuts, and now being able to put some things potentially back in because of the hard work. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is a key point, though. We're under budget after 2 rounds of cutting things out of the project. Windows, skylights, things that were in the original plans. When we value engineered it, we took out. And now we have an opportunity to put some things back in, but we clearly had to make some cuts. It's still a beautiful building, but, there were things that we had to be responsible about and realize that it wasn't in the cards given the costs. So.
And I think at the school building committee, they mentioned, and I think you had put it on social media as well,
Yes.
Jen, thank you for that, that out of the 13 MSBA projects, we were the only project that came in, we'll just say on budget, but the other school building project overages range from 1 million to as high as almost $35 million. So other towns had to go back to secure more money from the taxpayers, and we did not have to do that.
And I think some of that is a function of Fontaine and Tappe and Vertex.
Yep.
Just knowing what they're doing in terms of the whole process. So we have to credit them as well.
Well, I agree, and that idea of starting with Fontaine a little bit earlier so we could do the preliminary things was a smart piece of advice that we got from Compass, I think.
Yeah. I did get some pushback on don't celebrate yet. There's a lot to go.
Right.
But I think what people aren't understanding fully is that, we've signed contracts for this. So we are in the final stages and we can celebrate at this point because we have, the numbers are in, let's say that.
Yeah, really good news.
Excellent. Great work. All right, on to the high school project.
Very minimal. Tappe, who's doing the design work for the potential high school project, is doing schematic design right now. They're putting some of our ideas into place, and we're going to meet with them, I think, as a body sometime at the end of March to get an update. And then in May, we'll have some feedback on what those designs look like. They're looking at a lot of science-related improvements to the science wing and different enhancements to that curriculum overall. potentially having a field house that'll build space outside of the school so that we can utilize the space inside the school better and expand additional programs like music, counseling, and student support. So excited to see what they do. And, it's just letting you know that we have a history of, so far, good quality projects that are, well-researched and, done well. So.
Excellent. Great. Any questions? Awesome. All right. Next item on the agenda is subcommittee activity.
I think we had a special education subcommittee
Yes.
meeting where we really looked at trying to revamp the website, so that's when I brought up Tom.
Yes.
But we need to
Excellent.
model it after
We have a
this.
list for him.
Yeah, we have a list. And we had a curriculum subcommittee meeting, which
Yes.
focused a lot on the work-study program, which is fantastic, and so the staff and hopefully a couple of the students, prior to the end of the year, we'll bring them in to a full school committee meeting to really see the work that they've been doing and to celebrate it, because it really needs to be celebrated and publicized.
Agreed, and I think it'll be great to hear from the students who have gone through the first year in their perspective and what we can learn from it.
Just a quick comment on that. I think if we funded that last year.
The teacher position.
I think
Yeah.
to create some more oversight and enhancement of the program, and just from listening to, how well they're progressing so far, even in the first year, and just the reflective practice they were taking to develop even better, more robust program going forward. It was really exciting for what opportunities are for all of our students.
Yeah, good point.
Definitely. Excellent. Okay, on to citizens' comments. Seeing no citizens, we'll move on to the approval of warrants, donations, and minutes. Sean, do you want to take the warrants?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following expense warrants for the amounts listed in your packet. Those are 223027, 223028, and 223029.
Second.
A motion by Sean, second by Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? Declined? 600.
I'd also like to make a motion to approve the following payroll warrants for the amounts listed in your packet. Those are 2325PA and 2327PA.
Second.
Motion by Sean, second by Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. How about somebody take the gifts and donations?
I can make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations. To Johnson Middle School from Sarah McCracken for the Orion Skyview Pro 8 telescope for $800. The Fisher School from Shutterfly for $25.71. Daniel Feeney Preschool from John D. Langley Foundation for music therapy, $14.85. And to Johnson Middle School from Box Tops for Education for $26.
A motion by Sean, second by Jen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. Right, minutes.
Through you, Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the January 12th, 2023 school committee meeting minutes, the January 17th, 2023 school committee workshop meeting minutes, the January 19th, 2023 curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes, and the January 18th curriculum subcommittee minutes, and the January 19th public hearing budget minutes.
Second.
Motion by Bill, second by Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Sean. All in favor? 600.
Let's go to Mary, or?